I listen to those voices, and let me tell you something, boy. Bahamians don't know how gifted we are. I mean, innately gifted. I mean, if you sit down and you remember Carl Bryce and Richie Delamore, and you think of Ronnie Butler even today, and Donald Butler, Marvin Henfield, and how good these guys were. People used to come to the Bahamas and get knocked out by the native shows. And that's why, in my program series called Bahamians, I like to try and bring back those days to get young people to appreciate. But boy, let me tell you something. We had something here, and those are Bahamians who came out of a gene pool of less than 60,000 people. And in that gene pool, man, was a Sidney Poitier. In that gene pool was an Andre Rogers. In that gene pool was Yama Bahama, Elijah Obed. In that gene pool was so many terrific Bahamians that we don't know anything about, that we never discuss, that we never glorify, that we never emulate.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Wendell Jones. The Bahamas has lost one of its finest sons. On Saturday, May 15th, 2021, we were saddened to learn of the passing of statesman, broadcaster, and national icon Sir Charles Carter, who passed away at the age of 78. For many days, the tributes poured in from across the Bahamas for the man who made Bahamians feel good about themselves and about being Bahamians. Decades ago, he created and hosted the Young Bahamian Show on ZNS, played a pivotal role in the organization of ZNS Television, and hosted the first show, Focus, on that station when it went on the air in 1977. It was Charles Carter who led the team in the live broadcast on July 10th, 1973, when the Bahamas became an independent nation. As he said, in 1964, when he joined ZNS, he took ZNS to the people of the Bahamas. He was educated at St. John's College in Nassau and went to university in New York. Later decided to read law with his uncle, the late Sir Randall Fox, but was later encouraged by a family member to become a radio announcer. To say Charles Carter was a cultural icon is an understatement. He was a politician too, and served as the Member of Parliament for Holy Cross for 10 years. In that period, he was appointed Minister of Foreign Affairs and Minister of Health. Later in 1992, he was made the leader of the official opposition in the Senate. In this special tribute today, you will hear from a family member, his former colleagues, a business associate, and a former Prime Minister of the Bahamas. Let's now listen to one of his brothers, Mr. Frank Carter.
Edward Charles Carter, better known as Charles Carter, was my oldest brother and the first of the Carter 8. We grew up on Augusta Street. Our grandmother, Madeline Carter, was widowed at an early age, so we were very fortunate as children to have grandmother at home when we came from school, and later mom and dad would come home from work. My parents started a business in 1945, Carter's Upholstery, and also Carter's Record Shop. My parents rented from Harold Chipman, next to, immediately south of the Mortimer Candy Kitchen. And every Friday after school, we would walk up to mom and dad, and we would then play on the Mortimer's porch. As we grew and attended church on Sundays, we would have a big family breakfast after Mass at St. Agnes. And each of us had to perform for our dad. He insisted that we either sing, say a poem, or do something, dance or whatever. I was the worst of the lot. Charles wanted to be Roy Hamilton. He will sing I'll Walk with God or any of the other Roy Hamilton songs. Late sister Maria would always say a poem. And poor me, I followed Maria by 1 year. She followed Charles by 1 year. And I was 1 year older than our late brother, Harcourt Cody Carter. But it was of joy that we sat at breakfast. Then we performed. Late in the afternoon, we would listen to a show sponsored by Dad on the radio, the Nat King Cole show. After that, we would then Dad will get to the piano and we will have to sing hymns. Well, I think I was the only Carter that could not sing, still can't sing, but it was wonderful growing up in that house. As children, we had our differences, of course. We had our little fights, and we loved to pillow fight. Sometimes our cousins would join us in pillow fights. Charles, as the eldest, and I would rotate going to market on Wednesdays and Fridays to buy fish. And you better know the difference between goggle-eye and jacks or snappers. We skated. We were not allowed to open our Christmas presents before we went to church on Christmas Day. We went to Junkanoo for the first time in 1949 after we came from church. December 26, Boxing Day to everyone else. To our dad, it was St. Stephen's Day. So we had to go to church first and then Junkanoo. Our grandfather, for whom Charles was named, died January 2nd, 1950. And Charles was afraid to touch him. Mom made us all kiss him goodbye, except Charles. But growing up, we had wonderful times. I can remember the first baseball game we listened to on Dad's 1948 Ford station wagon on a Sunday afternoon, listening to the World Series, the New York Yankees versus the New York Giants. Willie Mays was the Rookie of the Year that year, and Charles and I became Giant fans. We don't know how his son became a Dodger fan, but we were lifelong Giant fans since Willie Mays to say, "Hey kid," playing center field in the Polo Grounds. We also were very fortunate to have attended school in New York together. And the Mets' first year, we visited the Polo Grounds. We were, if there were 4,000 people there, it was plenty. And Andre Rogers playing for the Cubs. We went behind the Cubs dugout shouting, "Andre, Andre, Mr. Rogers, we're from Nassau, we're from Nassau." And after the game, he called us closer and asked us our names. And we told him who we were. And he said, "Oh, I know Mr. Carter." And boy, that made our day to have met Andre Rogers. Charles graduated Rhodes High School in New York, then went on to New York University. After graduating high school, he came and worked in Uncle Randall's law practice, Sir Randall Fox. After his first year in university, at New York University, he again came home and worked with Sir Randall. And he told me that he did not like it. Coming home after his second year in university, Ed Bethel encouraged him to apply to ZNS for an announcer's job. And he was successful, and it was supposed to have been, for him, only a summer job, but he loved it so much. It was the beginning of a love affair for the rest of his life with broadcasting. He loved broadcasting. He loved being on radio. He once told me his favorite of all of the programs he did at ZNS was Housewives' Choice. He said he had the most fun, and he would get many calls from the housewives. And later when he did the request show, the Hospital Calling, I think was the name of it, on Saturday nights, he also told me he loved those. There's so much I can say about my brother. He was my best man at my wedding, and we were looking forward to celebrating with him later in the year. Well, God had his plans. We loved worshiping together on Saturday mornings at St. Agnes Church, and after church service, we would go for breakfast and sit and talk. Or if he had to take his grandchildren to breakfast on Saturday, he would order his fish to go. The last time I spoke to Charles was the Wednesday before he died. He died on Saturday. He was in hospital for almost 5 weeks, went home for a week, and I called him and was preparing to go to see him on Thursday. I asked him if he would like me to bring some fresh coconut water for him. He said, yes, I'd like that. That was the last time I spoke to my brother. Thursday morning, his dear wife, who did such a wonderful job, called me and said they had to have Charles go back to the hospital. And Eddie called me early afternoon, Saturday last, that he had passed. We're going to miss him. He had a love affair with the Bahamas and the Bahamian people. He loved what he did. These are Bahamians was his byline for the show he did that came on ZNS on Saturday mornings. But I think among people my age remembers him for the Young Bahamian show, where he went all over the Bahamas discovering how talented a people we are and how lovely this country is. And he would not have exchanged being a Bahamian for $1 million or $2 million. He loved the Bahamas and he loved the Bahamian people. And so God bless him. God bless his family, Eddie and Mark, and most of all, Morel. They did a wonderful job caring for their loved one. May he rest in peace, and God bless his soul and take his soul into his loving arms, and God bless the Bahamas. On behalf of all of the Carters, we are thankful for having him as our brother. To all of our cousins and relatives and friends, we are thankful for all of the love you have shown us. God bless.
We now listen to a tribute by Mrs. Elva Rolle, a former announcer at the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas and a former media executive.
This is a very good day for me. I get to talk about my friend, my mentor, somebody who trusted me and really helped me to move forward and develop myself, because he had an interest in developing young people. Mind you, I'm not that much younger than he was, but he taught me a lot. And I guess he considered me a young person, young in the business, I take it like that. But when I joined the ZNS team, and I say team because at that time that is what it was, I was introduced to Charles Carter prior to my coming to work at ZNS. But the thing is that really struck me with him, he always had his paper and he always wrote with pencil. And I wondered about that. I never asked him, but I was watching what he was doing. And what he was doing was being prepared. He did his own research. And I said, wow, that's a good act to follow. That's a good thing to know. That's a good thing to do. And so what I did when I had that opportunity to be a radio announcer, I was fully prepared always. And another thing I noticed about Charles, Sir Charles, he told a story with every shift he worked on. It was a story, and he was always prepared. And what he did that really, really got to me was how he made the Bahamas smaller than it really is, because he brought everybody together. And culturally speaking, he was excellent, excellent. And not only was he a man who loved Bahamian culture, he loved Bahamian music, and some of the music that he found, I'm still wondering where he found those tapes or those recordings and how he kept those things in his head. But he always told a story. He always had an opening, a beginning, and an end. And he captured your attention. And if he was talking about John Moss, I eventually knew who his parents were, his siblings, and that made sense because it brought out who the person really was. And I said, you know, that's a good thing to do also. So I just followed him, and he made me feel so very comfortable. You know, there were times when, well, when I got there, I met two ladies there. And when I came along, I had a different type of, I loved a different type of music. And I felt as though I was a younger person, but I can gel with anything or anybody. And any assignment that I got, whether it was Charles being my direct boss, I did it because I wanted to learn. I wanted to be the best. And he said to me, you're not a female broadcaster or a female announcer. You're a broadcaster. You're one of the fellas. And I took that literally. And I was given so many opportunities, so many privileges. Back in the day, you know, you worked in programming, and that is where you worked. But back in the day, I worked in news, and I worked in programming, and the opportunities came for you to travel the family islands, for you to cover certain things. And Sir Charles always said to me, you can do it, you can do it. And so I just began developing my organizational skills so that, not that you will be recognized or be noticed, you just do what you're supposed to do. And he also made me think that, hey, you are in leadership position, and so there's a lot of people who will be coming behind you. So I said to myself, you know, I'm going to do the best I can always, as if I'm teaching somebody else to follow me. So I developed those habits, and they stayed with me, and I was given opportunities because of that. You know, it was never a time where it was an assignment that they say, well, oh, she can't do that because she's female. You know, so you remember these things. I remember once there was some dispute going on as if, you know, the privilege was given to a few, but that wasn't so. Like Charles said to them, look, if I send her to cover something at the Jockey Club, and you know what the Jockey Club is, right? It's an old bar room on East Street. And he said if I give her an assignment to cover anything in there, she's coming back with something on that tape. So that really made me feel good. So the opportunities were wide, and I'm sure it helped encourage younger women, men too, to do the same thing, to be the best. And you know, we mourn his loss, and because for me, he was a very resourceful person. I can't remember exactly what, it was Christmas before last, Christmas Day to be exact. And we were having a great time at my sister's home. And there was somebody thought they knew the right answer, and I knew that right answer, and I wasn't having it any other way. I wish I could remember, but you know, I'm getting up there in age. So I said, I know, I'm going to call Charles Carter. He knows the answer for everything. And he was very happy to hear my voice, and I was also very happy to hear him also. And so I just, you know, I reflect on all the opportunities I had and the privileges so that I can better myself and have, you know, set myself apart for other young people to follow, you know. And so the trust that was built up was excellent, because if there was a function or an event happening for government or wherever it was, I know I was involved in doing something. And I found out that that was because they knew that I would gather everything you need to make whatever was happening correct. I don't care if it should have been done by somebody who had a lesser place at ZNS than I had. I didn't care. I wanted to know how to do everything. And for you to be the best, you have to know how to do everything. And that is what I remember Charles Carter for. He was just brilliant. He was just brilliant. The music, I remember he'd always talk about this musician, this Bahamian musician who was, you Google him, you will see where his work has gone. Joseph Spence was his name. So first time I heard his music, I said, I don't know, that sounds weird or something like that. And so, you know, I would sit in and listen to Charles Carter talk about this man, this Joseph Spence. And lo and behold, he was a Bahamian. I mean, universities from all over the world are studying what he did and how he did it. He was just great. And anything you wanted to know about any musician, he would bring it up for you and make you understand who these people were and what they meant to the Bahamas. Bahamian history was told. I mean, he went to all the family islands and he brought the Bahamas right in your living room. And so I'd like to say to Charles Carter's family, his wife, Lady Morell, and his two sons, Eddie and Mark, have my deepest sympathy.
And now we hear this tribute from Mr. Mike Smith, who for many years was a news director in the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas, serving with Mr. Charles Carter. And he also served as chairman of the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas in recent years.
I met Sir Charles Carter when I went to ZNS in 1971. He was, of course, an announcer there at the time, moving up the ranks. And immediately, we struck off a good relationship. He was a mentor to me in many ways. And I had a good relationship with him from then until until just very recently. The thing that the contributions that I think Charles made that are most significant is, one, the body of work that he produced. He has produced a tremendous body of work. And by that I mean he has done recordings with most notable families in just about every family island and scores of people in New Providence. And what he did was he took his tape recorder and he went into settlements that normally you wouldn't get to ordinarily. But he knew of people there who had a contribution to make in the arts and in Bahamian culture, and he wanted to make sure that the rest of the Bahamas knew about them. And so he did a lot of recording. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of recordings. And I think that that will be a very significant pool in the archives of the Bahamas, and for us to follow in days to come and in years to come. The other thing that he did that was notable, he led our team when we went to Ryerson to establish television in the Bahamas. He was with the Pioneer Group. That is, him and Carl Bethel led the group of us, and there were 12 of us all together at Ryerson University, and we studied and came back to the Bahamas and established the television system for the government. That was very historic. I was very, very happy to be a part of that. And Charles, of course, we all stayed together in the efficiency apartments on one floor, so we became very close. But then when we came back to Nassau, we were able to, as a unit, really work with the eager and excited Bahamians who were establishing television. His first program, Focus, was a hit, and everything he did after that was a hit. Charles is a very compassionate person in many ways. He did enter politics towards the end of his broadcasting career. That was not his first love. His first love was really broadcasting, and you know that he did it pretty much until he passed, establishing his own radio station, and his two sons, Mark and Eddie, will carry on that for him. But again, I repeat, his contribution, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of the impact that he would have, is the interviews, the hundreds of interviews that he did with indigenous Bahamian artists, whether it was vocal or other art forms. And everybody in the music world, in the art world, respected him, held him dear. And his library, I hope his sons make sure that it's secured and will eventually leave it to the archives of the Bahamian people. Charles Carter should be thanked for the body of work that he has left us in the Bahamas.
You are listening and watching a special tribute to the life and times of the late Sir Charles Carter, an outstanding broadcaster and cultural icon of the Bahamas. We take this break and we'll come right back.